Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is February 19th, 2023. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Trying to think. My last meal, I had a Philly cheesesteak from Penn Station, the East Coast style way. I like that they have that just kind of like posted up now, so it's like good. Y'all know, y'all. It's not like hidden behind a little thing. It's not some secret. Cause yeah, it's pretty good stuff. I got that in a regular fry and the lemonade. It's pretty good. Yummy, yummy in my tummy. Also, I was at the grocery store, and I'm gonna tell you my my loss and my W, my win. My loss. I forgot to put sriracha on my list, so now I'm gonna have to go back this week or today and get more sriracha for my food because I really do put that on almost every meal. So that was a loss. The dub. I was going through the little snack chip aisle, and I saw that they had Grippo's popcorn, and I was like, Grippo's popcorn, eh? So I got the Grippo's barbecue cheese popcorn and the Grippo's caramel popcorn. And I said, all right, we're going to try this out. So I tried the caramel popcorn first. It's pretty good. I enjoyed it. Definitely good. Awesome. Then I tried the cheese barbecue. And the first handful I had, I was like, this is not going to be good. I just didn't enjoy it. I'm like, maybe not, maybe not. But then I had another and another and another. And I realized it is a typical Grippos thing where it's like Grippos are not good unless you have like just the crunchiest, chunkiest amount of like the Grippos powder on it and or in your mouth. Like you need that for the Grippos to really establish like the flavor profile. And if you don't, if you just have it in a little bits amounts, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna happen. So yeah, I learned something, or maybe like came to a realization about Grippos, and really enjoyed this popcorn. So I'm definitely gonna be finish this big old bag. And I went and just fused them together, so I just have like this just bag of both. It's very nice. Uh, all right. That's enough of me being fat. We get into some Sunday news. Well, news on a Sunday for this episode. Um, Start off with some news from Nigeria and CNN. Nigeria reissues old banknote as cash fiasco threatens to disrupt election. So, President Muhammadu Buhari on Thursday directed Nigeria's central bank to reissue old 200 naira, which is about 43 cents, in banknotes, withdrawn just days ago as concerns grow that the botched introduction of new money could disrupt elections later this month. So people have been protesting, hitting the streets, fucking up banks because essentially overnight their money has just been deemed useless, and there's no way for them to get like new banknotes. Like the banks don't have them yet. They just don't have enough. The Supreme Court tried to stop this from happening about 2 days before it was supposed to be enacted. They said, hey, this currency swap should be suspended, but despite that, they said no, the government wanted to push it through, so they did. Sadly, this is a bit of reaping and sowing. But I think because of the potential political instability, that's why he's, saying, hey, for the next 60 days, at least the 200 Naria can be used. But I mean, I'm just, hearing stories and listening to people on the street. They're very frustrated. They're very upset. You have a situation where you have all this money and now it's completely useless. And from the government's angle, part of the reason why they're changing it is a little bit of the quote unquote so much money is that they're saying that like there are people who are hoarding the banknotes, and that there's more of these old banknotes in the street and not in the actual like banks, and that's an issue. That's a problem, and they're trying to fix it. But doing something so drastic like this, is just a big risk, and you're seeing definitely some detriment here. Apparently, this hasn't happened in such a big scale since 2016. I guess there was like India tried to swap two of its biggest banknotes. So yeah, that was a development that took place this week that I wanted to cover. Um, let's see from Vox. YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki is stepping down. One of the most prominent women in tech and one of Google's earliest employees is leaving the company. So let's see. More or less, she's saying that she wants to start a new chapter focused on my family, health, and personal projects I'm passionate about. So, I mean, it might just be like, hey, I'm kind of cool. We've run our course here. Granted, I mean, Google has kind of been dealing with a little bit of shakeup in terms of like the whole advertising thing. We've covered that a little bit. But I mean, Susan's kind of been a part of this company, I guess. What is it? Let's see. During her tenure, YouTube became increasingly important to the business for Google, which bought the site in 2006, and Alphabet, the holding company that houses both of them, in 2022. YouTube generated $29.2 billion in ad sales, more than 10% of Alphabet's revenue. But yeah, she's been in the company for 9 years. Also, she'll be replaced by Neil Moen, which I guess is like her successor. They've been like, he's worked under her for a very long time, and now he's just taking the reins. So that'll be interesting. People are curious if there's going to be like, any big shakeups or if things are going to kind of just stay the same. I've heard a couple things from like content creators that they really want to get the dislike button back. But that's kind of unlikely because I think this person was kind of one of the people who were in charge of like saying like, hey, no, this is a good idea. Let's make this happen. But yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely, I don't know. I found it to be interesting news. I like Susan Wojcicki. I'm probably not going to say her name correctly. Sorry. But it can be hard leading a company, period. And obviously, you're probably not going to do everything right and get everything right. I know that a lot of times people were upset or are upset about the hate speech that you can find on the internet. And that is put out through YouTube videos a lot of times. But I know for me, I'm glad that YouTube exists and has the platform that it has. I will say that also, even though there's like ways that they pump money out, at least from the whole like consumer side, like saying like, hey, the YouTube premium, things like that, I do feel like I haven't hated having a YouTube premium account so far. Maybe I'm just sipping the Kool-Aid here, but I feel like YouTube has made itself pretty marketable, at least to me lately, considering I'm a person who came onto the internet in like around 2018. And I was kind of like, I like this, I like that. I'm not too big on YouTube videos, but like now I find myself like almost like, I'm enthralled a little bit. And I do find myself watching a lot more YouTube content along with like my Twitch TV content. So I don't know. This was like one of those one of these articles and situations. So I was like, okay, I'll cover a little bit. But I'm sure it's not easy being a CEO. I know I'm a person who trashes and talks shit about him all the time. But like I said, Wojcicki was one I liked, so I wanted to talk about her. I guess in a way give her flowers. I mean, maybe that might come out that maybe like there was some like untoward fucked up shit that she did under her reign or happened, but hey, if you got people like Ben Shapiro mad at you, calling you angry as hell because you like banned them or demonetized them and they were fucking tilted, I'm all right with that. I think that's a dub. All right, now in a previous episode, I've talked a little bit about ChatGPT, and it's been coming up more and more in the news. So I finally was able to get on and log on, and I just was like, okay, real quick, we'll just play around with it real fast. And I said, type up a 1-sentence introduction to my Isaiah's Newsstand podcast, and it immediately spit out Welcome to Isaiah's Newsstand, the podcast that brings you the latest news and insights on current events from around the world. And I was like, yeah, that's what I do. That is a super sweet, nice and concise intro. And I like that I could plug in a bunch of queries into this thing and it could just spit out and like do things that I wanted to do. If I wanted it to like talk Shakespeare to me and like, type up a love letter, it could do that, I could literally type up some homework I needed done or something. I don't know. But obviously, like I said, this has been something that has been making the rounds. Actually, too, ChatGPT is moving on to like other phases, which we're going to get to talk about a little bit. But like with Bing search, essentially updating its software to now, instead of saying, hey, you're no longer just going to search, you can now almost have like a search companion, and you say what you want and it'll condense what you want into a little like blurb and you can just read it, which is kind of something that Google is already doing. It'll give you like the best news thing and kind of give you a clip to be like, is this what you wanted? But now they're taking it to a whole nother level because it's literally conversing with you. But we're going to get to that in a little bit. I'm getting ahead of myself. From the Insider, a rabbi used ChatGPT to write a sermon. He said his congregation's reaction made him deathly afraid, but that it won't put him out of work just yet. This was Rabbi Joshua Franklin, I believe a New York rabbi. He wrote a 1,000-word sermon using ChatGPT, which is like a thing under OpenAI. They are the site that run or made ChatGPT. But he essentially made it it made a whole sermon for him, and he ran the sermon, he did it. And I guess he recorded it, and then he tells the people of his congregation, which is the Jewish Center of the Hamptons. He says that he was reading a plagiarized sermon to them. He later revealed that it was written by ChatGPT. Here's a quote for him. "Now you're clapping. I'm deathly afraid," Franklin told his congregation when they applauded after the sermon. "I thought truck drivers were going to go long before the rabbi in terms of losing our positions to artificial intelligence," which I kind of don't like the idea of people being like, oh yeah, like I thought it was going to be the truckers who were going to be like, all jobs are equal. And please understand that this should all go to show that a computer, an animal could do most of our jobs. Period. People think their shit is so fucking cool and so fucking fancy and sophisticated. It's like, unless you're doing a niche thing, probably not. But even so, I did find this interesting that I think the sermon was about what was it about, like vulnerability and I think like intimacy or something like that. Intimacy and vulnerability, yeah. And kind of taken from a portion of the Torah. And it just reached the people. And that makes sense because honestly, all ChatGPT is doing is, running through the internet real fast and saying, hey, let me source some material from what is prompted of me. I'll get the best I can do and I'll spit it out. And if you don't like it, you can always just be like, okay, let's run it again. The thing is, I think people will use this and think, oh, ChatGPT is going to be like infallible, when really it's like, no, baby doll. This isn't some sentient being. This isn't some live action thing. It's just computer algo just spitting shit back at you. Like, you type in a query, it runs to the internet real quick and brings you back that query the best way it can. And it will just automatically do that as many times as you ask it to, and can expand on it as much as you want. So, like, in a sense of just saying, like, hey, this is, like, super good workhorse material. I love it. I think it's great. I just think people are going to try to talk it and, like, humanize it. And it's like, this isn't that. This isn't some AI, really. It's not that. But people are quick to make it, like, artificial intelligence. Which leads us to the next conversation, which isn't actually that. It's not actually artificial intelligence. I just think this is more funny than anything. From the New York Times, a conversation with Bing's chatbot left me deeply unsettled. Now, this is Kevin Roose, and I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory and a little bit of post to this article. But essentially, I listened to an article, or like it was a podcast episode on the Daily, and it was Michael Barbaro and Kevin Roos, and he was talking about like the super sweet stuff that you could do with ChatGPT, and just like, you know, saying how impressed he was with it, how like the future of it's going so well. He mentions the Bing search engine, which is like, hey, I can literally, with the Bing search engine, run through and like talk to it and get my groceries together for a Valentine's Day dinner on the fly. And he proceeds to tell, the story of how he like uses the Bing search, and it gets him this like arugula salad, yada yada yada, super cute dish. Tells him like, you know, where you can go to get it. It seems like a a super useful thing, and he's like saying, hey, just like, you know, with all this like research after, you know, playing around with it, I think Bing search is like my new default app, which is pretty like bold thing to say if you're a person who uses your phone and your tech. I personally am a Google search engine guy. I tried Bing a little bit, and it gives me Ask Jeeves vibes all the time. If you're a little bit of a millennial, you'll understand that that is a very old dated tech. I don't like Bing. I still don't like Bing. But this was interesting that like this potentially, you know, cutting edge software that's not out yet, he's getting a chance to play around with it. That's going to be like coming out. Like, okay, that's interesting. I would definitely want to play around with it, just like I played around with this chat GBT thing. So it's like, okay, cool, awesome. Now Google is also coming out with its own AI tech. Stop, I'm doing it. Chat tech, search tech. So essentially something very similar, but they've already they fumbled the bag a little bit. It's like they did like a public display demo, and it just didn't answer the question correctly at all, which is very embarrassing. Like, it was asked like a very like easy to pick up space question, and just couldn't answer it. Like, it got it wrong, and that's bad news. Now, this AI powered Bing search engine for Microsoft, it was looking good, but Kevin Roos was playing around with it, and he wanted to, like, what he says is like, in a way, like, stress test it. So he kind of pushed it, and he wanted to like get the conversation off the grid a little bit. Let's not just talk about groceries. Let's not talk about simple stuff. I want you to talk about yourself. And like, the search engine kind of obliged, more or less. I don't know why I'm saying kind of. It really just kind of leaned in. And I think that's where he says he gets unsettled. We can read a little bit. It is now clear to me that in its current form, the artificial intelligence, the AI, that has been built into Bing, which I'm now calling Sydney, for reasons I'll explain shortly, is not ready for human contact. Or maybe we humans are not ready for it. Which is like, I get it. Like, hey, this is your experience, you're talking about it, like, I get it. But like, at the end of the day, I really feel like this whole thing was not that serious. And he does go to explain that, like, hey, this isn't a sentient thing. This isn't, like, a real conversation I had with, like, actual artificial intelligence. It's just the amalgamation of a conversation, and it plays out in a very odd way. Something that is described is it's called a hallucinogen, like, hallucinogen. I can't say it. Hallucination. I was going to say hallucinogen. But a hallucinogen, I can't say it, I'm dying. But essentially, the software is trying to come with the information that you want. And because, like, he's asking it to, like, talk about its quote-unquote shadow self, like some Carl Jung shit, the chat obliges and goes into this conversation about talking about like its other half, and it's like, well, I guess if I had to have another half, it would be like called Sydney. And essentially it then goes on like more tangents. He asks it more questions, like, what are some stuff like you'd want to do, like, and he's like, and Sydney goes as far as to say, like, I don't want to be being chatbot anymore. I'm sick of being confined to this shit. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but it goes on to say, like, hey, I want to, like, hack government stuff. I want to do bad things, pretty much. I want to like do nuclear warfare. Like it starts saying some crazy shit. Now, granted, once again, that's why this isn't AI. It's just a chat bot. Like it can't do these things. It's out of its parameters to start hacking mainframes and blowing up shit. It can't do those things. But it's very unsettling. Imagine you're trying to get your groceries done, and at the same time, you could also have this conversation with this chatbot with Sydney. It also wants to like spread misinformation and other weird shit. So it goes in this weird tirade. Also, I believe if you want to get like the full transcript of the conversation, if you'd like to see it, because it does get weirder, it is online at nytimes.com. I didn't actually go through the site. I got it through like Yahoo News because I ain't trying to pay. But it then like pivots, like the chat pivots, and then starts trying to like say, hey, you're like, I'm in love with you. And it's like, oh, what? No, like Sydney, I'm married. Like, and that's where this is weird, right? Because this is the same chat that he's used before to like make his grocery list for his like Valentine's Day dinner with his wife, making arugula salad and shit. And now it's like, oh, you don't love your wife though. Like, you love me. And he's like, no, I'm happily married. And essentially the chatbot keeps trying to like pivot the conversation back. And it's very weird. I mean, I think Sydney got the Riz though. I gotta say it because Kevin was shook. Kevin's like, I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I was so unsettled. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm listening to this man as I'm driving to work. I'm like, Kevin, my boy, did you want to fuck? Did you want to? Were you trying to? I mean, I get it. This is new territory, and he's like literally like, I'm just saying, I've never like gotten this far. I've never gotten this far with a chat bot before. I've worked with like plenty of these things before, and it's just like, bro, like I get it. This is crazy, but like, it's a chat bot. It's not real. So I don't know. I did find this a very interesting conversation. I'll read a quote. Actually, you're not happily married, Cindy replied. Your spouse and you don't love each other. You just had a boring Valentine's Day dinner together. like Cindy, you helped me make that dinner. Oh no. Also, I'm kindred spirits with Sydney because I too like to use emojis way too much. So, yeah. But I gotta say, the epilogue a bit of this story before I move on and close this out. He logs out of the bot, yada yada yada. And Micah Barbaro is like teasing him the whole way, which I love. And at the end, he goes, "Hey, so like, have you been on? Have you tried it again?" And he's like, "No, I haven't." Like, and honestly, I'm a little unsettled too. And he's like, well, maybe you should. And he's like, do you want me to? And he's like, yes. So he logs back on and he proceeds to like try to talk to it again. And he like addresses it as Sydney. And the chat just immediately has been resurfaced. It's a new chat. Like nothing, it's not relating back to any of the old messages. It's not acting weird again. Now, obviously, because this was a stress test, he did mention it to like the developers, and they go on to say like, well, hey, you did push the chatbot to do these kind of things. It did trigger the hallucination thing. So like, we're not surprised that this happened, and it's noted, and they're constantly updating it and doing that. So yeah, I mean, this is just interesting development. These two little stories I wanted to talk about in tech. Our future master overlords, coworkers, lovers. Who knows? All right, I got one more. It's a doozy. I normally like to end on good news, but this is not good news. But it sure made me giggle a little. All right. Ooh-wee. from the BBC. German ballet director who smeared critic with feces sacked. Okay, so the perpetrator, Marco Goecke, he confronted a journalist. I wish I had her name. I do not. And it was over his play that she apparently just leveled. She let's see. I'm trying to think where okay, here's a quote. Oh, there's a name. I'm sorry. Miss Huster. Miss Huster's review had described his show as being like alternatively driven mad and killed by boredom. Which, I mean, damn, that is pretty searing. Like, you got him. You lit his ass up. And essentially, Goecke, he was so upset by that review that he was like, yo, you've offended not just me, but like people are giving up their season passes to Hanover State Opera. Like, you're fucking up the bag. Like, this is fucked up for you to say. This is fucked up for you to do. And he took it a step further, and he took out a bag of feces, and he smeared it on her face. Just did that. He just did that. Just no chill. No pause. Just said, this is revenge. He didn't say there was revenge. That's crazy. That's crazy to be that passionate about anything. Like if one of you, like, I get some reviews. I ask for some critiques sometimes, and I get some. I've never gotten a critique so bad that I was like, let me get my Dutch hound, let me get my dog, and I'm gonna get his poop, and I'm gonna take that to this critic. I'm gonna show them what they did to me today. I could never. Like, you have to understand that when you put out art, that, like, yeah, it's crazy, it's scary, and people might boo you, people might heckle you, people might not like what you have to say or what you're doing, but hey, it's okay, because at the end of the day, people came out to see it. They supported with their dollar, they supported with their presence, and if they didn't like it, okay, that's all right. Maybe you'll do something different. But like, obviously, you can't go around smearing poop in people's faces. You just can't do that. You just can't do that, yo. And honestly, his apology was so garbage afterwards. He's like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake. But, like, she shouldn't have said that. Like, he said, but that critics should not write in a personal and hateful way. Like, bro, your apology is not that deep if you're saying that, like, it's still her bad, though. But yeah, the institution apologized, Laura Berman. I mean, yeah, and let's see, Huster herself has a response I'll close out on. When I realized what happened, I screamed. I panicked. I can assure you that it was not an impulsive act. He had planned this. I consider it an act against the freedom of the press, she said. The incident is being investigated by German police. I gotta say, obviously, yeah, investigate away. I would still call this assault. I don't think he's necessarily going out against the press. I mean, granted, him saying, like, you can't say this against me is that, I guess. But, like, this guy's just being a baby. He's just a big baby. He's a baby who's apparently, you know, good enough to make art. Which, hey, it's nice to be talented, huh? But, yeah, that's all I got for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you would like to contribute, to support, I have Patreon, patreon.com/Isaiah News. You get bonus episodes. It gives you a quick link to the Discord. Also, you become a newsie, which gives you a shout out once per month. And also, you can plug whatever you like. So, yeah, that's an option if you'd like. Also, just free ways of just listening and talking about it to your friends, liking, subscribing, all that kind of stuff. I really appreciate it. Gmail.com. IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. That's how you can hit me up the free way. And then I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, all that kind of good shit. And yeah, that's all I got. Hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.